All right. So, welcome to episode 2 of What's the Yarn. Today we are shining the spotlight on Tristan Nelliman-Adams. Now, Tristan is a Aboriginal man and Torres Strait Islander man from town, or living in Townsville, I should say. But I'll let him do his own introduction in a minute. But before we do that, let's do an acknowledgement of country. So today I want to pay my respects to the Kaurna people in the country that I'm recording this podcast on. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge that Kaurna land was never ceded. Sovereignty was never ceded. And we pay that respect to their continued cultural and spiritual connection to the land. Tris, do you just want to do a quick acknowledgement of where you're at today?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on the podcast today. So I'd like to also follow cultural protocols and pay my respects to traditional owners of the land I'm on today here in Townsville, the Wuggaruka people, but also pay my respects to the neighbouring traditional owner groups of the Juru people, and the Bennell people. So, like you said, sovereignty never succeeded, and it's really good that no matter how much we go through in life, it's good that we stay true to our roots and always acknowledge those that come before us and pay our respects to our traditional owners. And it's good to have me on this. I'm excited for this.
Deadly. It's good that you're on here. I'm really excited for this yarn. So once you said, you were keen to jump on, like I was just like, all right, we're going to talk about some pretty exciting stuff. But before we jump into it, do you want to just give a quick intro of yourself and who's your mob?
Yeah, so my name is Tristan Nelliman-Adams. I'm a proud Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander man, so from Aboriginal lineage. It's from the Wuthathi tribe up in eastern Cape York around the Shelburne Bay region. And then proud Torres Strait man, I'm from the Miriam tribe, which is Murray Island, Badu tribe, which is Badu, and Kiriri, which is Hammond Island. So Couple Kubil Debbie Kikem, which is good evening because we're recording this at night time. I like to definitely pay tribute to all my mobs and especially your mobs as well, among our people, and then to also all the people that we listen to us, Indigenous and non-Indigenous.
Thanks for that, brother. So one of the reasons I got you to talk about, got you on the show, because I wanted to have a yarn, mainly because we met each other through the Indigenous Marathon Project, and what I really admired about you was your leadership skills. And I kind of wanted this episode to be shaped around leadership and how you've grown into that. So I think it's important to talk a little bit about your roots in terms of, you were never always a marathon runner. You were a bit of a rugby league star. So do you want to just tell our listeners a little bit about your story with rugby league and where that brought you?
Yeah. So firstly, thanks, Bella. Like you said, I'm kind of renowned for my leadership. It's funny when you say that because it's hard when people say you're a good leader, or you're an upcoming leader or stuff, because you just do things just out of love for people. You just do things out of habit or the morals that you were taught, or you just do things because you're just a good bloke and you want to be good to other people. And it's hard that people sometimes say, you've been a dead leader, but I'm just kind of just trying to do things just to bring joy to people's life. But in saying that, like you said, so we met on IMP, 2021 squad, OGs. We had quite a long and eventful running journey, yourself and I. So we've run a few marathons together. We've crossed finish lines together. We've played cat and mouse in marathons together. You beating me beating you, me thinking you were dead, but that's another story. But before that, I dabbled in the game of rugby league, and it's funny. I grew up in the Torres Strait on Thursday Island, and rugby league is definitely a game played up here in North Queensland, and obviously throughout Queensland and New South Wales. But it's just had such a strong love for the game up throughout the Torres Straits and the Cape York, as much as the game of AFL has in remote communities throughout Northern Territory and Western Australia. So up in Queensland, rugby league is definitely a strong point. Growing up on TI, it was definitely what I wanted to do as a career. It was definitely everything I loved doing. Funny fact, I grew up as a really overweight kid, And then it wasn't until I was about 10 years old where I kind of went through a growth spurt. I grew really tall, I got really skinny, I got really fast and lanky, and I just started to kind of excel in the game of rugby league. I grew up on Thursday Island. There obviously wasn't that many opportunities for rugby league and throughout the Torres Strait. But when I did get opportunities to go through different representative teams, I'd make the Torres Strait team, we'd go down to Cairns, we'd play all the regions from around the peninsula area. Would come up there and then we'd go make the peninsula team and go down to verse all the regions from Queensland, like Northern Queensland, Brisbane, all the metropolitan areas, Central Queensland. Carve up there and then was lucky enough to have play a few Queensland jerseys, which was pretty cool. Represented Queensland schoolboys, Queensland club. My mob was a really good one, represented Queensland Indigenous. Murrays, we actually vested Queensland Couriers, which was pretty deadly. We played before one of the All-Star games, Rugby League All-Stars on the Gold Coast. I was just a 16-year-old. I actually captained that team. So like you said, leadership has come from such a young age. But the game of rugby league is just what I always loved and what I always had a passion for. It then grew me, it took me away from the Torres Strait. So funny enough, I was 12 years old. The North Queensland Cowboys came to the Torres Strait to run some development camps and some training camps. And I was 12 years old and I got asked to be a part of a development camp for 18 to 20 years old. And I was 12. And I kind of impressed there just being myself and being the athlete that I was. And then they were lucky enough to say, well, we want you to come down to Townsville on a 5-year contract. And I pretty much made a decision to pack up my family, mum, dad, brother, and sister, stayed up on Thursday Island. I moved down to Townsville, living with a man called Tristan Wolfe. Wolfie, at the time, he was the Cowboys under-20s coach. Before that, he was the Cowboys recruitment manager. Funny enough, Wolfie is now assistant coach for the Dolphins with Wayne Bennett, and they just did on the weekend. So I lived with him. He's a Mount Isa man, and his wife is Murray from Mount Isa, Calcutta. Lovely family, lovely children. So I left the Torres Strait, went to a school called Ignatius Park College, which is really big for rugby league, and started my rugby league, my leadership, my life journey there at the college. So that's where it all stemmed from.
Wow. That's amazing. So my question is like, what kind of leadership do you need for, to succeed and excel for rugby league?
Oh, bro. So in honesty, like I would never do anything that I wouldn't ask others to do. So if we're at training and we're doing fitness, if I was to finish in the top group or in the middle group, I still would go back and I would help the low group finish. If we were training at 5, I would never rock up late. I'd always rock up early. If we had a standard that was set, I would make sure that I would fulfill that standard, but also try and bring others up to the standard as well. So with rugby league and all team sports, which you would have been a part of with basketball and for IMP, there are certain different types of leaders where those that are really good with their vocal ability, and then there's those that are really good with their actions as well. And I was blessed that I was good with both. I had a voice which inspired and encouraged my teammates around me, but I also led from the front foot and I was in the trenches of every single thing that I always did. And that's how I like to live life in terms of my leadership, is I'm a big man of leading by actions, and actions speak louder than words, which is awesome for what we're going to talk about. Just touching on my rugby league journey as well again, still signed with the Cowboys, played rugby league from 13 to 17 at Ignatius Park College, a very dominant rugby league school. A lot of good rugby league players have come out of there, Callum Ponga, Michael Morgan, Valentine Holmes, ones that are killing it in the NRL and have done a lot of good stuff for the game recently. And then I thought I was going to be one of those people on the same line, graduate school, did the same thing, had a contract with the Cowboys, but unfortunately got injured, broke my ankle, and then went kind of downhill from there. And it was just a spiral downwards for a lot of things in life, and I kind of lost lost the love for the game of rugby league, but also just kind of lost the love for a lot of things as well. So it's funny, like the catalyst for me was that rugby league was my life. Rugby league was everything I wanted to be. I had no backup plan. That was put all my eggs in one basket. And I look back now and I thought, you're so dumb. It's at such a small margin that excel, or such a very, very small percentage that actually make professional rugby league. And you got to have it. You got to be gifted. You got to be dedicated. You got to work hard. You got to have a lot of luck to be able to make professional in any type of sporting industry. And I just was out of luck. And that's happens, and that's life, and that's really good. And I can sit here honestly and say it. But all that I had amounted for a large portion of my life was dedicated around rugby league. Do I still have the love for rugby league? Yeah, I do. Is it as serious or the be end all my life? No, it's not, which is good. And I've kind of broken away from that stigma of rugby league's everything, or footy is everything, or got to constantly play footy or be around footy mates and everything. Now I just enjoy it, the game for what it is. I enjoy watching it. I don't even play as much, but it's just good that such a big portion of my life was consumed by one thing, and I now it's like can accept that I am a better person for not having that much involvement, if it makes sense.
Yeah. I think what that makes me think about is kind of like it's like a I guess a label or an identity of you. You know, you probably got a lot of, you know, when people heard your name, it's kind of like Tristan is rugby league, like he's a rugby league player, you know. And what you're talking about, to me, it makes me think of that saying of, you know, migration of identity. So rather than being consumed by just rugby league is who you are, you know, you were able to accept everything in your experience from playing rugby league, and that made, you know, it taught you some core principles. You know, I've watched you for the last couple of years, and definitely high work ethic, definitely strong leadership skills, and I think that's what the game has taught you, or built on your natural abilities as well. But it's not exactly who you are as well. So it's a part of you, but it's not your whole identity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, Bala. And the best thing is that, like, a lot of the attributes I got from rugby league, or a lot of attributes I have in life, I got instilled by really good people around the game of rugby league, like respect, like hard work, like dedication, all those things that come from just playing a game, I instill now on a daily basis in life. So you made a really good point about how it was my identity. I feel like for a long time, that's all I was renowned for, was my identity of rugby league. But it's funny, I went to like I said, I went to Iggy Park, a really, really prestigious rugby league orientated school where a lot of kids go there for rugby league. A lot of kids want to go there to try and eventually crack the NRL or try and make a name for footy. And the Cowboys are right there on the doorstep. So they go there for that. But I remember in my grade 12 year, I was captaining the football team, which is a pretty big honor. But I was also in the musical as a background extra, as a guy that was working in a coffee shop for Joseph, the Technicolor Dreamcoat. So I was probably more proud to be in the musical than to play footy, because I wanted to break that stigma of footy boys are footy brutes and they're jocks and they're bang, 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 crashing and tackling, and it's just all grunt. Like, I loved the fact that I was in the musical. It was probably the most funnest thing I ever did at high school. So from
until this podcast, right?
Yeah, it's probably the thing I've done in my life. But for a long time, it really consumed me. But I feel like when I was around that age of becoming older, and it took, for me, like you said, leadership to step out of my comfort zone, or leadership to break that stigma where people are perceive you as one thing, you step away and you kind of dabble in a lot of other things, and you kind of, spread your rings across a numerous number of fields, that it was actually a really good eye-opening moment for myself, what else life has to offer. And I was really good. I was still really invested in rugby league, still keen, but I look back now and I'm triggering core memories, just us young, and I had some really good times in music. I remember I had really good times at study with my friends. Like, what makes up a generic rugby league player I realized towards my senior years at school, I broke away from that stigma. And I'm proud to say that because it shows good leadership to do that.
Definitely, definitely. And I think that, what you're talking about, that comfort zone, being outside of that comfort zone, you do that naturally, and you're, well, I don't know if you are comfortable being outside that comfortable, can't even talk, comfortable being outside the comfort zone, but the way you portray yourself, the way you carry yourself, you seem very confident, you seem very capable as well. I guess what I want to talk about now is probably you and I are really big on mental health. And we kind of really bonded over that during our IMP experience. But what has made you, a leader in this space? And I kind of want to emphasize that leadership part because you're very open and you're very vocal about talking about how important it is to regulate your mental health and your well-being. But what kind of brought you to this passion?
Good question, Bala. And you're right. Rugby league was a high for me, but eventually it quickly towards the end of, I wouldn't say end of my rugby league journey, but after I got injured and I tried to come back and play rugby league, it just wasn't the same. And the highs that I got from playing the game, just getting lower and lower, and to a point where rugby league really gave me a bit of a dark hole in my life. And it was kind of to a point where I had lost the love for the game of rugby league. And I started to not want to do it because it was just, losing got really a thing for me where, because I love to win so much, I'm so competitive that if I lost, I would just really drown in it. But at the end of the day, it's a game. It should be fun. It should be about participating, about coming together with your mates, win or lose. So then I started to get the competitive overtook me, the training overtook me. I started doing too much, started not seeing my friends, hanging out with my family, and it just became such a dark place for me. But when I finally stepped away from the game, I finally got a bit slack of rugby league, but I fell quickly into a dark place mentally, and I kind of spiraled down. I had some really dark years, and I'm actually quite open about it, as you know, and I'm pretty not like I am now open with the fact to say it, but there was a few dark places where I did try to commit suicide as well. And it really I hit it really well because I'm always seen as a happy-go-lucky, confident person, and nothing ever gets me down, nothing ever affects me. Or if something affects me, then it's got to be really crack the walls that I always have up, or crack the armor that I'm always portrayed as. So it's funny what took me to be so confident and so advocate of my mental health and my mental health journey was you in IMP. So you're fishing for that answer when he's good. He knows what he's doing. And I tell this story quite a lot. I do a lot of things in the Townsville region and Townsville community. And one of the highlights last year was I went around to about 15 different schools in the Townsville Catholic region, Mount Isa, Cloncurry, Ayr, Abergarie, Ingham, down to Bowen, Burdekin area. So a lot of schools, all the Townsville schools. And I talked to students from grade 7 to 12 about mental health and what kind of tools and capabilities that they can have to combat mental health issues and mental health illness. So when I gave my spiel, it was about 45 minutes to, at least 600, 700, 800 kids across a big radius of the Townsville region. I'd always start my speech off by acknowledging you and saying like how I have a mate called Clinton and we did the IMP together. And I'll tell you the story for the viewers. When you first come into IMP, you don't know what to expect and you're very vulnerable and you're very raw, but you also kind of don't know how much to share and you're pretty shamed and you're very closed because you're about to meet a group of strangers you've never met before. You're about to go on a journey. You don't know what's going to happen and you're about to start the journey of running a marathon. This is absolutely hectic. So when we walked into Camp 1, we all sat down on the very first night. Uncle Rob was there, coach was there, all our members of our squad were there, a lot of grads were there. There's a lot of people in the room. And we went around one by one to say what's our why, what drives us. And when it came to me, I got a bit choked up because I wanted to say what it was, but I didn't want to say what it was at the same time. Like I wanted to say mental health was my why and my drive, but I did it at the same time because I don't know Bismarck. It's a bit confronting. I don't know how to do it. I said I'll just here to do it for the Townsville community and Townsville youth. We fast forward 3 or 4 spots down, and you're straight up like, oh, yep, I'm just going to be honest. Like I've had mental health issues. I've had some mental health issues on myself and have done been in some pretty dark places. And then that literally just broke a wall, or it kind of hit me like, whoa, like this Bala boy who I never even met before in my life. And he doesn't know any of these people as well. He just pretty much disclosed some of the harshest and deepest, darkest secrets from himself to a room full of strangers, and was so open about it. And since then, my thinking changed quickly around it's okay to speak out. It's okay to be an advocate, and it's okay to be a voice if you're struggling with your own mental health illnesses and your own mental health well-being. So coming back to your question, you were saying who was the main advocate, or where's my drive, or where's my motivation, or how did I find my voice? You helped me find my voice a lot, Bolo, in 2021. And I wouldn't be able to so open, honestly, if it wasn't for you. And I'm not saying that because we're on a public platform or we're on the podcast. I tell you all the time, you know that. So you're 100% efficient for that answer.
But, no, I appreciate that, fella. Like, I think it's like what you said at the start, you know, you don't really know, you know, how you know, if people call you a leader or in the space or whatever, you don't really know how you're impacting other people by just being authentic, you know. And I think that's the other reason for this podcast. I want it to be as authentic as possible. And we've had some deep yarns about mental health and all that stuff. And we've learned a lot from each other, definitely. And I just appreciate you paying that respect to me, but I also pay 100% back because, you know, I wanted to be as authentic as I could be through my IMP year. But one of the things I guess I didn't focus on, or didn't go into the program focusing on, was my leadership skills. And it's hard to get a message like mental health and regulating your wellness across if you don't have that leadership or you don't have that communication skills. And I watched how you navigated the group, and I think, you know, the fact that you got the leadership award for our group kind of just really affirms how supportive you were to the whole squad. So I really watched you, and I learned a lot of leadership traits from you. So I think just as much as you learned from my experience, I learned 100% from you. So I think that just goes hand in hand. You know, I think mental health, being open and vocal about mental health is just a strong trait of leadership. So I just want to thank you for showing me that, because I would never speak out in groups. I would never, you know, I'm out there doing speeches now, you know, I would never do that before. But I think just seeing the potential impact you have by putting yourself in those vulnerable positions and being your authentic self, that's what creates the change, and that's what creates the ripple effect that we always talk about. So thank you for teaching me that.
No, that's right, brother. And like you said it pretty well before, vulnerability and authenticity are probably key when you're having conversations around mental health. A lot of people see mental health, and it's a generational thing, I reckon, where it's a taboo subject. You don't talk about it, and don't ask if they're okay, or they'll just be okay, or they'll get better, or don't bring it up. While it really needs to start to switch that way of thinking, where we should be normalizing conversations around mental health and normalizing conversations around the topic of your well-being, and if you're okay or if you're not okay. If you're not okay, that's like no stress at all. Just talk to someone, or I know it's hard at the start, but you honestly feel 10 times better once you get that off your chest and you say, I'm not doing well, because one, by admitting you have a problem or admitting something's wrong or you're not feeling well, that is a weight off your chest. And two, by talking to someone, then you now have two people that know what you're going through instead of one, and then that person can help. And it's just all a big ripple effect, like you said. It's as sad as it is, in my current role, I'm a teacher. And when kids always come to me and they say, oh, Tristan, I'm not doing too well. Can I have a chat? I actually get excited. No, not because they're not doing well, but I get excited because they want to have the conversations and they want to have the yarns. Because we're just slowly trying to change the way we think and the conversations around mental health and the tools that need to follow, especially for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. There's so much cultural insensitivity around mental health that sometimes people just prefer not to have the conversations because they don't want to feel culturally insensitive, or they don't want to feel that they're stepping on toes. And at the end of the day, you've got to have those yarns about mental health and well-being and checking in and just giving appraisals and just seeing if people are okay, which is what you highlighted before. Like you saw me such as a big leader in our IMP 2021 year, Bola, and I really appreciate that because you said, oh, I got a reward of how I interacted with the group. When really, I knew IMP was a big year and I struggled and I thought it was hard. But I thought, geez, imagine if everyone else is hard. So that's why once a week, maybe more than once a week for my favorites, and I'll probably call members of our squad just to check in. Like it wasn't even a scheduled thing. It wasn't even just to like big note or to be a leader. I was just like, bro, this is a hard little journey we're going on. So hopefully everyone's going okay. And what snowballed from there is just, I believe, is such a close knit group that we have as our squad. Some of the bonds and friendships we'll have for life. And I believe that it all just come from the vulnerability and that authenticity when we did the program, which is a really big thing when you're having conversations around it.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember those phone calls, and I remember like looking at my phone. It's Tristan. I was like, this fella, what's he want? Nah.
Better set aside 3 hours. What is that?
Nah, but it was good. And I think to go back to that award you were given, we all mentioned that you were the glue to the squad. And again, a lot of that came down to you understanding the mental health struggles and your leadership skills. So I think that was huge for us. And, bringing everybody together when we did have our camps, it was always, you just already had those relationships. So by the time it was camp 2 or 3, because you did the check-ins, because you were that glue for us, you could just go around to everybody in our squad and just blend in and just pick up like you just saw him yesterday. So I think that was really special to watch that. And me not being strong in my leadership skills at the time, I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot of the value of checking in all the time and making sure that everybody is okay. And actually, just hearing what you said now, if it's hard for me, it must be hard for everybody else. So having that awareness, I didn't even think about that until you just said it. So I think awareness is probably another natural trait of leadership. So I'm going to write that down.
I'm going to trademark that quickly in the next
time. Yeah. So
but
that's...
go, Paula. But like you said, it's just, we had such an amazing, I don't want IMP to hijack it, this podcast, but myself and you certainly grew a lot from that. And a lot of the traits of who we are now today as an Aboriginal and as an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander man, we owe to that program, and the leadership, the vulnerability, authenticity, and how we conduct ourselves all came from that program. We were really deadly inspiring people before the program, but what IMP done was they gave us a catalyst to catapult ourselves onto a bigger platform where we can reach a wider network of people so that we are seen to be having more ripple effect across the nation. And that's what we did. No one else was running at 5 and 4 in the morning when we were running, but somehow people loved that. I didn't love it. Did you love it?
I mean, I did all my runs at night, so I definitely don't love that morning run.
Adelaide Mob. See, Adelaide Mob, they got nice weather. Townsville,
that's right.
Midnight or 4 a.m. That's it. Nothing in between.
No, I couldn't do it. But yeah, like that program is definitely something, and I agree with you. I think we're all special people in our own rights, but that program gives us the opportunity to really enhance ourselves and enhance our our natural abilities, our raw skills, and just gives us and allows us more opportunities to build on them and gives us experience. So I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways from that program that I got, as much as connecting with everybody else and, like you said, building lifelong friendships. That's very special.
I agree.
So I'm looking at your shirt, Trist, and it's looking pretty deadly. So why don't we yarn about that? So what is that shirt? What does it say for the people that are listening who aren't going to see the video? What's on your shirt? Let's have a yarn.
Right here on my shirt is an emblem that says Townsville First Nations Youth Council. Let me take you back to 2021. I am P-related again. My big why, which you spoke previously on the last episode with Bonnie, it's your reason why you want to run a marathon, because running a marathon is so hard and the training's hard, and you really got to have a strong purpose of why you want to run a marathon. My big why was obviously around mental health, but it kind of evolved into mental health and well-being and having those conversations. Before mental health, like I said before, my first why was to inspire the Townsville Indigenous youth and youth around the region, and then snowball into youth around Cape York and Torres Strait and anyone that would basically follow my journey, that you can do anything you want to do as long as you're willing to work hard enough or to work hard enough to achieve it. So what I had for my why was I was just so invested in our young people because they're our future. And I was so invested in making sure that I was a role model for the younger people around me, so that I can embed in these young people, some good traits and some good morals of respect, of giving back to community, of dedication, of resilience, and try and embed them so that once they understand what kind of drives me as a person, they can take something out of it, and then that they can be striving, educated, fit Indigenous people for our next generation. When I finished my marathon, I come back to Townsville, and I was actually met with a lady from DATSIP, the Department of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Partnerships here in Townsville and here in Queensland. That's a government sector. I met with a lady there, and I said, look, my name is Rennell. I really want to just do something with our Townsville youth. Like, I just ran this marathon. I'm on a high. I want to go there, and I want to tackle some good things in the community. So she said is like, why don't we put together a young people group? And we don't know what we're going to do, but let's just get a bunch of young people in the same room and see if we can snowball from there. We've ran the marathon on October 23rd, you and I, in Alice Springs. And the next month in November, we ended up having our first meeting of this group. We didn't know what it was called. We didn't have a name. We just had a bunch of young people in the same room that were like-minded, that had really good networks in the community, and they're all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and we're all young. We're doing some good things in the community, and we were all young, and we had a drive and passion to kind of help our First Nations youth. So it kind of snowballed into developing something called the Townsville First Nations Youth Council. Early 2022, we kind of came together a lot via Zoom and in person, and we said, okay, this is our group. Let's start to really hone into what we want to do, and let's make this official. Let's not be seen as a bunch of just young Black kids trying to get together and just have yarns. Let's proper make this into an actual official thing. So we started to do a terms of reference. We started to put together an executive committee. We started to recruit some really good like-minded young people, and it all snowballed into last year in October. We had a terms of reference. We had an auspicing group that auspiced us. We had a bunch of young people that were all like-minded. We had an executive committee, and I was very honored that the group voted me. They voted me in as the chair. And so we got a chair, vice chairs, treasurer, and a secretary. So that was October last year. And we said, well, what are we going to do? Like, we've got this group. How are we going to launch ourselves in the community? So then it kind of quickly snowballed into, let's have a big launch, and let's really celebrate that we're out there for the Townsville community, and let's really start to all strive towards this one goal and this one date. So last Monday, we were very lucky enough to then have our Townsville First Nations Youth Council launch. And at the launch, we had members of Parliament there, we had the mayor there, we had all these really big, high dignitary government people in the room, and it was pretty deadly in terms of like we kind of announced ourselves to the Townsville community about we're a bunch of young people and we're here to make genuine, authentic change for our First Nations youth life that it comes. So, a bit of context around the youth in Townsville, a lot of social justice issues, youth crime, housing, education. So, we certainly just wanted to be an advocate for being a voice and not the voice. And now we're kind of out in the community and we're going to run some programs to help engage our disengaged youth. We're going to be an advocate and advisory role for some of our government sectors like youth justice and housing and education. We're going to run some programs around NAIDOC Week and have some deadly things installed, all from an idea which we had from IMP and so it's a very big part of my life now. Just we yarned earlier, it's just kind of overtaken my life and was kind of swamped. And it's been a really cool journey so far. And it's a really good thing that we've implemented so that First Nations youth in Townsville, their lives will never be the same because they'll now have some general, authentic leadership and some good people fighting for them, which is what they need. We need to fight for our young people.
100%. That's so powerful to hear, brother. Like all that came from one idea of what can you do for the youth, and you turned it into a youth council, and you're going to be running programs for the youth in Townsville. I think that's so special. Well done. Like I don't know what can you say to that? That's just like creating something so special, and it just made me think, when we were at the WIPSI conference, the World Indigenous Peoples Conference for Education. You and I went there last year, and it made me think of the Sami people, and they had their own, Indigenous government. And that just, when you said that to me, that's just what came to my mind. And I thought, that's so special to see.
Yeah, and I think from that conference, not only did we meet the Sami people, which are the Indigenous people in, where are they? Sweden, Switzerland,
and Norway, yeah.
In Norway, that area there. So they're called the Indigenous people, called the Sami people. They have a Sami parliament, which myself, and I'll shout out Jai. Jai loved the Sami people. We all thought they were.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, we thought they were absolutely deadly. And they have their own Indigenous parliaments. So we're not that far ahead, but we are on the right step. So I guess of just having a voice for our young people in Townsville, especially with so many youth issues. It's inspiring. Even I'm the oldest on the council and I'm 27. We have kids that graduated school last year. We have kids at university. I'm saying kids because they're younger than me. I'm a bit older. Big uncle, like big uncle.
Yeah. Call me uncle.
So these young people that there's a girl, she's studying medicine and majoring in surgery. There's a girl, she's an island girl, she's studying law and she's already working at a law firm. Like there's a girl, she's a speech pathologist already at the hospital. There's boys that working for Aboriginal Islander Health Service, and they're already engaging with families, and there's boys that are working in education in schools and starting to inspire their young people around them. Like we just have such a good crew where we're actually all on the same page. We're all moving towards the same goal, and we're all marching in as one to one goal, and that's just to have authentic, genuine change for our young people, or to be an inspiration for our young people in the Townsville region. Like it's just so inspiring. With that, we've had so many amazing opportunities. Like today, so I got to meet the Premier of Queensland today, Anastasia Palaszczuk, and the Premier knows about our youth council group. This is a woman that's running the state. She just passed a $6 billion renewable energy legislation. She's got maybe hundreds of thousands of people that fall underneath her, and she knows about what we're doing. So it kind of just makes us feel, and it makes me feel really humble and honored to know that we're just doing good things. And like I said to you earlier, leadership can come in a lot of ways, but if you're just being a good person and being a good bloke, that goes a long way for a lot of things. It can be seen as a good form of leadership if you just have your heart in the right place.
Yeah, and I think you being that humble person, I just need to kind of snap that out of you for a little bit, because I want you to recognize, that what you just described to me made me think, you're that quote, be the change you want to see in the world. And that's basically what you and that crew are doing. You're being the change you want to see. So you want to make a positive impact on the youth of Townsville, and you just go out there and you do it, and you're passionate about it. You and I had a talk offline about how you're very busy because of it. And, the last episode, we talked a lot about passion and how it's long, that's what sustains you. That's that long burn. And I can definitely see that. We did IMP 2 years ago now, and you're still on that journey of like, let's improve the youth. And I think that's so powerful. It doesn't just come and go for you. It's something that just it's burning inside you. And I know how humble you are, so I just need to kind of hype that up a little bit.
Thanks, bro. And like I said, a lot of people are really proud and really happy of what we're doing, but like I said, it doesn't seem like we're doing much. We're just trying to be good people, and that's just probably good qualities of just what I've learned over time. You don't really have to be out there marching or have megaphones, or not saying that's not a bad thing. Like, advocates are very strong for that, and I wish I had that type of strength within my advocacy, but my voice is quiet. But when I talk, I find that people listen, and it's a bit of a shame thing for me because I don't like talking a lot, but I need to find my voice in terms of my advocacy. That's why I'm so big on my actions speak louder than words. I would gladly go through the trenches, or someone's like, I'm going to run 100 Ks. Well, I'll run 100 Ks with you because I want to know that I won't say anything, but I'll just be there with my actions leading the whole thing. So that's a big part of leadership, like you said, and how that transpires into what we're doing. So that young group, like, I can't have much praise for them. But it's also, we made a really big point about it. Like, it took us 4 months to plan this one day. The day was a massive success, and it was such a eye-opening for a lot of people in towns when we've kind of announced ourselves, we're here. But I also told the rest of the people in that youth council that, you know what, we're only having this launch once, because in 20, 30 years' time, they can be like, wow, look what they established in 2023. Now it's 2053, and we're in our 40s and 50s, but the youth council is still thriving and still has a voice for youth perspectives of what the times are in the future. So that's just the main thing of why I done it. And it's so special that, like you said, we might have said to Bonnie actually on the last episode that this year's NAIDOC theme is 40 elders. So it's really special that we've kind of created this group. We're really leading the charge. We're understanding that our old people are the ones that pioneered the way for us. They paved the path. They're still, we're out there, the ones that kind of led the fight. But I feel honored for them to be like, we're getting tired. Do you want to fight for us? And I'll gladly chuck on the gloves and throw hands. So it's all good. It's very nice to know that during this year, with what we've established, it's going to create some really, really good impacts for the Townsville community. And I hope it can be seen as a pilot program for other youths across Australia and across different cities, that it's not too hard to do. You just find a good group of like-minded people, you come together and you try and start to get the ball rolling from there. It could be not be a council, it could be a committee, it could be a group, it could be a club, whatever you want to do. If you're really passionate about your little siblings, your nieces and nephews, then you're going to have to start having these conversations of, let's provide a youth perspective to a lot of youths.
I think that's important, to create leaders within our youth, because the youth today are our elders tomorrow. So, that really important part of learning leadership and, learning humility, learning strength, at a young, being introduced to those concepts in your youth stage definitely help you as you progress. And I'm 32 this year, so not quite an elder yet. So I feel like personally I'm a little bit, I don't know if I can still call myself a youth or a young person, but
your young legs.
I'll claim it for now.
Emerging.
yeah. But no, I think that kind of leads into my next question I got, Tris. So, you've done some pretty amazing things. We talked a lot about your rugby league career. We talked about, your leadership skills, and you're an advocate for mental health. And you're doing such an amazing job in Townsville with Youth Council. In terms of legacy, like when someone thinks of you, and I know we talked about migration of identity before, but what do you want, your children and your grannies and all that kind of stuff to, when they think of, Papa Trist or whatever, Pop, what do you want to be remembered for, I guess, or as?
Bro, you know what? I was listening to your last podcast of Bonnie, and you asked her this question when I was driving around today, and I was like, oh, I better have something for when he asked me. And you know what? I completely forgot what I was going to say. Like, I thought of something deadly, but then I completely forgot because of the day I've had. But that's a really good point in terms of legacy and what you do, and I kind of just hinted on that a little bit. I'm pretty humbled and pretty grateful that I've done a lot of really good things and really, really amazing opportunities in terms of leadership, in terms of just being an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander man since I was little. Like, I remember when I was 12 years old, I was grade 7. I was the house captain of a sporting house at primary school, then transitioned into footy captain, then transitioned into school captain. I was the second Indigenous school captain ever at Ignatius Park College, the one I was talking about, which is even more deadly how I broke down that stigma of being a footy boy, because then I was also a school captain. I was studying to get an OP on ATAR now, and I was also in the musical. So I did a lot of things in terms of leadership that normally wasn't done. I then took me into other leadership journeys. I was part of the Queensland Indigenous Youth Leadership Program. I've now worked up my way from a participant, a mentor, to a lead mentor. I now facilitate that every year. That's a bunch of 40 young people from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities all around Queensland, 18 to 25-year-olds. And I'm the one spearheading them, talking to them about leadership, talking to them about the tools they need to go back to their community to make a difference for their family, their mobs, and their hometowns. So I've done that, spearhead into IMP, spearhead into the Youth Council, spearhead into a program I just got in for called the fellowship program, through Culture is Life.
Yeah.
I just got into that.
Wow.
Yesterday, and you asked me what my legacy is. All those accomplishments, all those accolades I just listed, they don't mean anything to me. What my legacy is if someone was to come up to me, or if someone was to ask my kids or my grandkids, or if someone was around the community is like, well, Trey, about Tristan Nelliman-Adams bloke, I would just like him to say, yeah, you know what? He's a good fellow. Like, that's all I want. Like, there's nothing big about it. There's nothing I want to say as a legacy or I want to leave. I just want to be known for being a good person. Because if I'm being known as a good person, then I'll be happy. I'll forever be happy. Like, nothing else to it. Nothing else more. If someone to be like, yep, Tris, yeah, he's a good fella, then I'm happy with that. I'll die happy, man. Just to be known as a good guy with good morals, and it's just always happy to help out if needed. So that's all. That's my legacy. They ask my grandkids, and my grandkids are playing with their their friends, and they're like, "Do you know my grandfather Tristan? Yeah, he's deadly." And that's all I care.
That's deadly.
Yeah.
Well, I reckon you're gonna have to do some work, my brother. You're gonna have to make some changes.
You're gonna have to do something. You know what? I'll have to make some changes.
I think you're definitely on the right track, my brother. I think you're doing amazing things, and everybody that I know that knows you definitely says that bare minimum about you. So I think you're smashing that expectation. So
Yeah.
well
Thank
done
you.
on that. I did have something, but my mind's gone blank. I tried to have a little funny joke, and then I forgot my next question.
You really joke that much. So offline, me and Clint carry on flat. We're jokes this. Like, we didn't even, when we actually logged onto this Zoom, for people that are listening, it's quite funny. We didn't even say anything. We just stared at each other for a while. With Dre, you don't have to say anything. But my love and respect for you, Bella, goes way past anyone else. There's only very few men in my life that have had an impact or I love as much as you, bro. So I really appreciate that. Really appreciate that we ran a marathon together. Really appreciate we were roomies together in Greece. That was pretty cool. We've done some really cool things in life, and we all owe it to IMP. But that was 2 years ago. I'm really excited to see where you're going to end up in 32 years.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Like you said, you've learned a lot of me. I've learned a lot of you. We're just two ballers just out here, just trying to voice our opinions and just trying to make some change.
And while you're rambling about how deadly I am, I remember my question. So
there you go.
Because this episode is really, really big about leadership, and I wanted to share with all our listeners, your amazing skills. But I guess for our listeners that might be working with youth, or even young people that might be listening and want to become a leader, what kind of advice can you give them in terms of developing their leadership skills? What should they focus on, or any advice in general?
No, bro, that's a really good one. That's actually stunned me. Glad you come off that, buddy. I'm gonna have to think of something now. But the best part about that question, as you said, is like, if young people want to develop their skills as a leader, or they want to do something, or they just want to be a leader or be something, what they're doing is you're asking them to step out of their comfort zone. And that's all I can ask. And I reckon that's the very first step of being a leader. Because if, look, leadership and a lot of other things in life are hard. Like, if it was easy, a lot of people would be doing it. If it was easy, a lot of people would have ran a marathon. A lot of people would have, be out the front talking to crowds. A lot of people would be doing stuff for our young people, but it's not easy. It's really hard work. And it's only hard because a lot of us, it doesn't come naturally, or we have to really step out of our comfort zone. So for any young people that are listening, for any little kids that are listening, for any people working with young people, the first a piece of advice I can offer you is just to step out of your comfort zone and really go for it. I know it's hard because there's a lot around the shame factor of our mob, and there's such a big thing around you just don't want to do it because it just feels weird and unnatural. But you step out of your comfort zone once and say, you're at school, you're about to give a speech for English, and you don't want to do it because you're ashamed. But you step out of your comfort zone and you give that speech to the class, and the class think it's really good. You sit down, and at that day, later in the day, you might go and talk to the top shop lady. You might have a conversation with her while you're buying your lunch. So stepping out of your comfort zone events snowball into a lot of other things in life which you won't even realize. And then my second piece of advice is that if you are stepping out of your comfort zone and you want to be a leader and you want to implement change but you don't know how, or you don't know where to begin, my second piece of advice would just be to do what's best in your heart and just follow your heart and really be authentic and genuine in what you want to achieve. If you want to, putting in a running context, if you want to run 5Ks and you're really, really keen for it, then really strive and be genuine with your training, be authentic with how your limitations, and be authentic with your capabilities of can you actually run 5Ks and how long they'll take you. If you want to, join a touch football team, play netball, join a debating club, play chess, be really genuine in what you're trying to do and how you want to achieve it. And that's just probably my biggest goal. I probably should take some of my own advice and do some of that. But it's really,
that's really good, you know.
Yeah, if you're gonna have a crack at something and you're really interested, then know that you want to do it for the right reason. That's why you don't want to do it to be to show off or to say that you've done this. You want to do it for yourself to feel proud. And that's probably the biggest.
And I love that. I love that advice. You know, you didn't sugarcoat it, because leadership is hard, and that's the reality. And like you said, if it was easy, everybody would do it. But the reward of it is that it's earned. So leadership is 100% earned. That's why what you were talking about with our IMP squad. Hey, look out! I said your squad. You don't own it, no. But with our squad, you know, you put the work in. You know, you rang everybody up. You messaged everybody. You checked in. You know, that's what we were talking about. That leadership is earned. You know, and that respect is earned. So definitely don't want to downplay that importance of, you got to do the work to get that leadership. You know, it's uncomfortable, yes. It's vulnerable, yes. You're going to get misunderstood sometimes. Yeah, you know, people might not always agree with you, but that's what leadership is. And unfortunately, when you're a leader, sometimes you're not liked by everybody. You know?
100%.
Which goes into your next piece of advice. As long as you're authentic in what you're trying to get through and what you're trying to speak, that's when people start to gravitate towards you because of your leadership skills. And brother, I think, you know, I'm hyping you up so much because I haven't seen the leadership skills, you know, and I've worked across different work organizations and different roles, different sectors, going from community services, going to health, education, and now corrections. I haven't met someone with your leadership skills, and I'm talking, you know, director and executive levels down to, you know, your basic entry level service delivery. So I think it's really special, and I love I was able to get you on, have this yarn with you, and the next thing I guess that leads into is, I'm pretty sure people are going to be inspired from you, brother. So how can they follow you? So what's the best thing to follow Tristan and keep up to date with him?
Thanks, bro. I appreciate your kind words. And like you said, like, it's hard because yourself, and I admire your words, and a lot of other people see me as a leader, but I just don't see me as one. I just see myself as an ordinary person doing good things. And it should be like that. Everyone should just be out there just vibing, having positively, and just striving for good things in life. But if you're keen to follow my weird life and some of the weird things I do and some of the prestigious things I do, like meet premiers and stuff like that, Clinton will probably tag me on Instagram and Facebook for all the What's the Yarn socials. But I'm such a genuine down to earth person. So honestly, if you're listening and you're inspired, or you want to yarn, or you want to reach out, like, don't feel embarrassed or ashamed, because I love just talking to people and just being genuine with people. So what you see is what you get. Like, I'm not putting it on for a podcast. I'm actually probably putting in one more series for a podcast once you go. We'll just play, man, that was a gammon, or man, we talk something smack on that, or betray. Like, it would be, if anything, where I'm probably putting it on more than what I am, because it's just, end of the day, we're just two ordinary blokes having a conversation on What's the Yarn.
That's it.
Just two bullers out here from our country and from the, you know, from Shelburne Bay and the Torres Strait, just doing our bit to have yarns and change people's lives. That's nothing to it.
Yeah. And you know, don't lie when people message. You know, you got to leave them on bread. We all know that.
Yeah, don't be shy. Message me. I won't back, but message me. Bro, I hate fucking ones on Do Not Disturb, 3 calls, 4 missed messages. It's just,
what's his name?
Bennell is his name. He's this lovely fella from Adelaide. But also, are we wrapping up, Clint?
Yeah, bro.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for letting me be a part of the podcast, and bit of a exclusive for you. If you're keen to follow my journey and what I'm doing now within the Townsville region, I'm proud to say that I'll now be working for the Indigenous Marathon Foundation as the assistant coach of IMP and Track Runners program coordinator, and be able to follow me as I work within the Indigenous Marathon Foundation office and hopefully have a wider ripple effect across the nation. So
I knew it.
Heard it here first.
I knew it. Thanks for sharing that, my brother. Hey, what's the yarn? Dropping that knowledge.
Heard it here first with the red
yeah.
breaking news.
Yeah. That's amazing, brother. Like, honestly, couldn't think of anybody else more perfect for the role, you know. And we talked a lot about your leadership, and 100%, you know, that's a position well earned, well deserved. So, man, I can't express how happy I am for you, and how much love I got for you for that. You know, that's amazing. That's 100%
so
amazing.
I just thought I'd drop that on here. Thank you, I appreciate it. So I'll be supporting the IMP squad this year. So obviously we talked a bit about our journey. IMP is a big part of our journey. I'm glad that I'll be supporting the head coach, Damien Tucky, with head coach roles, but also looking after the other 132 graduate across the nations, including grad 118, right there, your boy, and be able to support them in their endeavors, both running professionally and in life. So we'll still be based in the Townsville region. So my youth council is still going to be thriving. Our youth council, our Townsville First Nations Youth Council, will still be thriving. But now I hope that with the person I am and how genuine and authentic I am, I can now create ripple effect across the nation and hopefully upskill our IMP graduates to then get them to a place where they're thriving, they're educated, they're healthy, they're strong and they're independent, so that they can inspire their communities, their families, and the people around them, so that our mob as a whole can be stronger and better for it. So start on Monday. Expect an email, Clint.
Let's go. Deadly, my brother. Look, huge thank you for coming on the. I came up with this thing. It's probably going to sound stupid now, but rather than a podcast, it's a mobcast. And thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you sharing your authentic self and dropping that breaking news for us. That's very special. But thank you so much. Like, this has been great to yarn with you. Similar to what I said with Bonnie's, this is probably the most serious we've been.
And for the people that don't understand, like me and Clint, we've been in the room sometimes where we haven't even spoke for hours, but as soon as we do, we just start laughing. Like our friendship is, this is very serious. We're very uppity class tonight.
Yeah. But honestly, bro, this has been very special. So thank you. And I know offline we talked, you ran me down a little bit for not having a little tagline out. So why don't I put you on the spot and you give me a tagline out?
Well, Bonnie actually come up with a good idea in the last podcast. She said, "What's your outro?" And then I said, "Why don't you get every person to have an outro?" So Bonnie's, well, that's the yarn. Mine I was thinking of in the words of the great and honorable, notorious BRG. If you don't know, now you know.
Go away.
All right. Thank you for having me, Bola. I really appreciate it. I love you, and we should catch up soon.
Love you, bro. Catch up.
All right. Thank you.